It was dry 20 minutes ago.
Is that rotation up there?
Oh my God! That's a tornado, 100%.
The month of April is ending the same way it began, with some pretty intense storms. Severe weather rumbled across the southern plains to the northeast last night after rounds and rounds of severe storms. Fox Weather exclusive storm tracker Mark Sudduth capturing some amazing footage of these storms. But tonight, we have even more severe weather on tap, and that'll even take us into Thursday.
Remember when you and I went out in the field and I was just looking at the structure? And that color, right, it doesn't do it justice.
No.
When you're seeing the videos of that. That's indicative of large hail, and we'll talk more about that. Let's get everybody caught up on what's happened throughout the day, what's happening tonight, and what you can expect in the days ahead. Because as Haley alluded to, April started and is going to end on a very active note. And so here's Little Rock, Arkansas. They were under a severe thunderstorm warning, and they had a tornado warning for a moment, and then they lifted that. But notice this, they got other tornado warnings in Illinois. So you got Fayette and Marion County, Illinois, with a new tornado warning that's just coming in. So let's dive into what we are seeing as of right now. Broad view on radar shows you that really healthy batch of storms here. And that's where your eye goes to and you're drawn to. You said that's got to be the greatest risk. It's actually out ahead of that. It's these lone rogue cells that keep popping up in our potential supercells. So we have the tornado watch down south for that main line you saw. And then you have a secondary tornado watch that's until 10 p.m. St. Louis, Effingham, Bloomington, all in that threat. So let's load up radar and see exactly where we stand right now with these storms. And so this is going to kind of give us a sense of where we are dealing with. I believe this is just outside of that St. Louis area. Oh, no, that's Illinois, right? So, okay, so we're looking at I-70. Let me back out real quickly. Yes, there's St. Louis. Okay, so this is going to be just to the east of there. I-70 included in on this. It looks like the beginning phases of a storm and already a pretty decent couplet. What do I mean by that? You're already noticing the brighter colors that are starting to emerge. And so you have 60-mile-per-hour differential. I believe that's just because I didn't select on the strongest one. But this kind of just shows us there's that bright yellow starting to emerge. The green doesn't look as impressive. So this could be kind of cycling right now. So that's one area of concern as this continues to lift. This was actually the spot that I was talking about before, and I was wondering why they hadn't warned it. Now, as it moved over the lake, they decided to enhance this. Notice what's happening south of Dallas, right in this corridor. Many of those severe thunderstorm warnings start to pop up. So even the backside of this system, providing some of those warnings. And notice overall, the leading edge of that has created multiple storm reports in Arkansas, even East Texas. Many of them look like they're trees that have fallen down on power lines and that damage down south. So I'm going to back out real quickly. I want to see exactly what's happening with this flare-up of storms on I-35 just outside of Dallas, out towards Killeen and Waco. These are new storms, a considerable threat because of the hail size, and then we have another one with the considerable threat for the hail size. But look out here towards Perry, where you have that hook that's starting to form as well. When you're getting in the beginning phases of these storms, so much can happen, and you see this kind of explosion of intensity that it may start out as a severe thunderstorm warning, but we'll be watching it because easily that could start to change. Either way, this is right on the heels of a massive event that we had yesterday. And so let's talk more about something that oftentimes may get overlooked, a straight line wind event. You've heard of tornadoes, a large hail, derecho. Let's get into what exactly is a derecho. And we'll get into what that is and then all the reports that came from it last night. Sadly, this was a deadly event as it slammed through Pittsburgh. We know that in Pennsylvania, at least 3 people died because of this powerful wind event. And by the way, this knocked out power to over 500,000 people. So here's the derecho, simple bullet points on all of this, over 400 miles long. So it's a long duration event, and you have to have wind gusts at least at 58 miles per hour or greater. And then along that path, 70 plus to 75 mile per hour winds. How does it all unfold? Well, you had the same type of setup with these powerful, intense storms that set up. Then we talk about a bowing segment. Remember early yesterday, we said a bow echo in Springfield. They got 90 mile per hour winds. So that's a small version of what ends up happening with this, because then you have this bowing line, right? There's that curvature that ends up happening and the descending winds that keeps marching hundreds and hundreds of miles. And so in total, as we had mentioned, it has to be at least 400 miles long in its entire track in order to reach to that derecho level. Well, we had that with its intensity in the Northeast, in the Ohio Valley region. But yesterday, even though it was a derecho, was much more than that. So let's unpack exactly what we saw with this event yesterday. We'll talk about how widespread this was, because Haley, I mean, we had talked about here in the Fox Weather Forecast Center, forget just a derecho, a serial derechos that formed. That means multiple ones that were ongoing on Tuesday.
Yeah, the environment for Tuesday was really conducive towards the Northeast for damaging wind. Now, we had quite a bit of tornado activity a bit farther south, but truly, this was an incredible batch of severe weather that we had come in.
Yeah, we look at some of the video, and you can just hear the intensity. This is University Park in Pennsylvania, where you can just see it kicking up. And when we talk about sheets of rain and it's blistering, I mean, that's what it's like. Those are the type of ones that it's like, you know, that hurts, just the rain itself.
And what's funny, too, is there was a porta potty that got lifted into the air from these storms in State College, Pennsylvania. So you don't know what kind of things can be flying around in big wind events. But it also spawned scenes just like this, too, just the sheer force of those winds. This also coming out of State College, Pennsylvania. So not quite the porta potty moment, but still you can see just how incredible the environment was. Yeah,
that looks like a gust-nado, right? You had that low-level circulation, but it didn't attach. So that was a small, right? We just highlighted State College. One of this, I'd measure this out. 1,800 miles of storms that came in yesterday, and you could just see the overlapping nature. But I think just in totality, when you look at this, the billing, I mean, this kind of overperformed in so many aspects.
Definitely. And when you look at wind speeds, 106 miles per hour down at the surface, that is above a Category 1 hurricane. Category 1 goes to about 95 miles per hour. So that's what you had in Benjamin, Texas. So wind was a big deal, but it was also this cluster of storms that produced about 8 tornado warnings later on Tuesday evening. So it was all modes of severe weather that you had to watch out.
I remember when we were doing the handoff, and I was like, hey, this one's not as good, but Oklahoma, Texas, you know, looking potent, because we had just gotten done talking with Mark, and he was saying, look, we got DVD-sized hail coming down, and when you got that type of intensity, you know there's going to be storms that are brewing. But I think what made yesterday so difficult, too, was it was the entire day. In the morning, we had so much activity, just like we had in the evening time here in the Northeast.
And I think a lot of that played out in a similar way today even. We had a big MCS that was going through Oklahoma City this morning, and that continued to move through. So that's why flooding is a big concern for a lot of these spots. But taking things back up towards the Ohio River Valley in Daleville, a car struck by lightning. So those are things you may not think about. Okay, you think flooding, hail, tornadoes, but lightning poses a significant threat, especially for wildfire danger too.
Yeah, and then you look at the intensity as it marched its way along from Ohio into western Pennsylvania, and Steel City got blitzed by this. I mean, this is a top 3 type of wind out of the Pittsburgh airport when you're talking about 70 plus miles per hour.
And at one point, over 400,000 people without power. And that's going to take some time for folks to come in and to put the power back in place for a lot of folks. I mean, 70 miles per hour, you have large limbs down. And I think that's a big reason why we had some loss of life with this. People were out and about. You have these big, gorgeous trees. They get toppled over with wind gusts in excess of 70, 80 miles.
Yeah, we saw a lot of those, right? Tree down on the house. You had a roof blown off. So when we give you those numbers, and it's tough to comprehend, like how does 106 mile per hour wind translate? What do 70 mile per hour winds? Those are the storm reports for you, and it shows you how the infrastructure just can't sustain that type of intensity.
And then you keep heading farther up the I-90 corridor, Syracuse, wires down, tree down on a house. I feel like that's just really a common thread between these storms across the Northeast. And this was a level 3 out of 5 for the Northeast. It's been a minute since we've had this much of an elevated severe threat. Tornadoes were possible here, though, as well. You mentioned that gust-nado. We had a few tornado-warned storms near Pittsburgh, but it was the winds that will be remaining remembered with this storm up here.
Yeah, and a lot of this damage still going to remain by the time the weekend event comes in.
Yeah.
Even at that sub-severe, a roof off of a home means rain is going to be a problem. So we'll keep talking about that. And as spring is in full swing across the Northeast, as I was just kind of alluding to, the Northeast bracing for another weekend of rain. But a lot of question marks on the intensity of that rain and also exactly who's going to get it. The long-range models aren't agreeing. And when that's the case, then, well, you got to wait till you get closer to the event to time it out. So while you want to stay with us here at Fox Weather, we're going to talk about the question marks ahead.